must be zero tolerance for disrespect for the one who lays down her life for those kids. And you remember when Paul wrote, this has nothing really to do with mothers in particular, but Paul said this, the more I love, the less I be loved. Isn't that an interesting principle? The more love he gave, the more he expended himself, the less he was loved. And unfortunately, that is sometimes the case with mothers. They love and they serve and they work, and oftentimes that is given a cold shoulder. They are less loved. For fathers, we must treat our wives, the mothers of our children, as a queen before her children. You know, it's not a far leap if a father is disrespectful to the mother. Is it surprising if the children are disrespectful to the mother? If the father treats his wife like a doormat, it's not going to take long before the children say, hey, mom's a doormat. But if fathers elevate their spouse, if a husband elevates his spouse to a position of honor, and he praises her, and he treats her with the respect that is due to her, then it will not be long before the children fall in line. Today we'd like to give you a very simple message of 5 ways not to treat your moms. 5 ways not to treat your mothers. The first one is found in Proverbs chapter number 10, if you would jump over there with me. Proverbs chapter number 10 and verse number 1. I just want to say that as we go through the book of Proverbs, I have found more and more how rich and how wonderful the book of Proverbs is. We're actually working with our teens. We've begun a study on the book of Proverbs. We are 3 messages in. And it is amazing to see the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that God clearly lays out in the book of Proverbs. If you are struggling with wisdom in your life, if you are struggling with decisions that you are making, you look at the decision and you wonder and say, why did I do that? I look back and that was a bad decision. If you are struggling with wisdom just on very practical levels in your life, I'd encourage you, start studying the book of Proverbs. It will radically transform your thinking because it transforms your thinking to God's thinking. And that's the transformation that needs to happen. Yeah, it's no good if you come up to me and ask me my opinion and I tell you what I think. You need to know what God's opinion is, and that will transform your life. But in Proverbs chapter number 10, starting in verse number 1, the Bible says this, the Proverbs of Solomon, a wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. You know, it's a great embarrassment for a good mother, a godly mother, to spend her life serving a child, and that child to grow up to become a fool. And it weighs very heavy on some mothers. And I know some mothers in here, there is great sorrow in your heart for a child that has gone astray, for a child that has refused your instruction. There is great heaviness to the heart of his mother, according to chapter 10 and verse 1. The book of Proverbs describes a fool many different ways. Some of these we'll look at later, but one identifying mark of a fool is this, according to the book of Proverbs, is that a fool refuses to be corrected. A fool is unwilling to hear the correction of his father, unwilling to hear the correction of his mother. In Proverbs 17 and verse 10 it says, a reproof entereth more into a wise man than 100 stripes into a fool. You know what that verse is saying? Someone who is a fool, you could beat them senseless for something that they did wrong, and it wouldn't stick. I mean, you could beat them, you could all day, 100 stripes, that's pretty intense. You could beat on them and correct them and say, it's wrong, don't do that, stop it. But if they're a fool, they won't listen. It doesn't matter how hard you try, it doesn't matter how much you discipline, they will continually refuse that correction. But it's interesting that a reproof, simple words, into the heart of a wise man will transform that wise man. And I encourage young people, when your parents reprove you, when they talk to you and acknowledge that there is something in your life that has gone awry, there is something in your life that is wrong, that you would be a wise man and not a fool. If you're a fool, you'll reject their counsel and the world will beat wisdom into you. And eventually, you may turn. But if you are wise, you will hearken, and you will listen, and you will turn. There are some young people and adults in here today that are fools. Your mother has given you good and godly counsel, and you threw it away as garbage. She has confronted you and disciplined you, and all of it has gone by the wayside instead of sinking into your heart. And because of that, according to Proverbs 10, you are the heaviness of your mother because you're playing the fool. If you are running away from God and your mother has constantly encouraged you to turn back, to turn back, to turn back to the Lord, if you constantly refuse, you are acting as a fool. You are a fool. It would be better if we simply listened to her and obey. Our life would straighten out, and this applies to both old fools and young teenage fools. Sometimes we think, once you get past the teenage years, all that listening to mother stuff goes by the wayside. Many of your mothers have much more wisdom than you do. And this is what I tell the teenagers. Some children are more intelligent than their parents, just by IQ. Your parents' IQ may be 110. You may be a genius. You may be 140. But I promise you, you are not smarter than your mother. You may be more intelligent, but I guarantee you, you are not smarter than she is. And it'd be wise for you to heed her advice and listen to what she has to say. So often we see young people and even older folks as they get older mistreating their mother, simply being a fool, not willing to be corrected. Number 2, we must not despise our mothers. Turn over to Proverbs 15 and verse 20. Proverbs 15 and verse 20. It says, "A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish man despiseth his mother." The word despise here is to scorn or to feel contempt for. God never intended for a mother to become the doormat of the home. She is not the punching bag for the kids and the husband to take their frustrations out on. So often, if a mom is a housewife, teens begin to think of her as lowly. Certainly, if someone cleans the toilets, they must not be worthy of my respect, right? That's often the line of thinking that young people and teens and even a husband may come to. That is a godless and a contemptible way of thinking. The mother should be the queen of the home. She should be the one that is praised and elevated. I don't know how it works in your home, but basically how it works in my home is this. Sarah takes care of almost everything inside the house for cleaning, cooking, although I enjoy cooking every once in a while. No one else enjoys eating it, but I enjoy cooking it. And I take care of everything on the outside of the house. And even yesterday, we had a great time. We spent all day, the entire day, working on the outside of the house. And we were digging up plants that were dying or didn't fit well. And I'll tell you, I met my match. Have you ever tried to dig out something that was well-rooted? I started digging, and this thing was rooted. And let me tell you what it was. I met my match in a pussy willow. That thing was mean. And I dug, and I was digging, and I was trying to pull it up, and I was yanking at it, and I almost killed myself. But I eventually took out my axe, and I started whacking at that thing, getting all the roots and everything, and I won. I am the victor. So I'm so glad about that. But we took the whole day, and we worked on the outside. But how we work it in our house is this. Basically, everything on the inside she takes care of. And she makes sure everything's nice and clean and that there's food and all these good things. And I take care of all the outside stuff. I don't let her take out the trash, except maybe to take to the trash can. I don't make her mow the lawn. Now, I'm not saying my mom loves to mow the lawn. I don't know why, but she loves to mow the lawn, so she mows the lawn. But we try to give her respect and elevate her to a position that she is the queen. That doesn't mean she never gets her hands dirty, but she is to be elevated to a position of honor, that we don't give her the laborious tasks of things that will strain, but that we honor her and that we respect her and that we show her the grace and honor that she deserves. As Mikey gets older, he's going to understand very quickly that he takes care of Mama, that it's his responsibility when he's with Mommy, that he protects her, that he watches out for her, that he cares for her needs.